I'm Taryn Paris, Managing Editor of The Urban Developer, and today I have Ranna Alkadamani with me. Ranna, can you tell us a bit about your role with Frasers Property Industrial?
I'm responsible for our global people and culture strategy. Ultimately, it's about working with our people and business to ensure people can be their best selves at work and do great work.
And how big is the organisation now?
We've got about 250 employees globally across Europe, Australia and Singapore.
You've been with Frasers for about 20 years now. How's the working environment evolved since you started?
There's certainly been a lot of changes over the last 20 plus years and since joining Frasers or starting my career. One of those, for example, would be data and analytics. I think the way we rely on insights from the data we collect, whether it's about site acquisitions, development, working with our customers and understanding our employees and their experience is virtually transformed, I think, in the last 20 years, and I think will continue to in the future. I think the other one has definitely been flexibility. We certainly saw with the pandemic a few years ago a huge acceleration towards embracing flexible and hybrid work and what that could look like. I think that's been great for us and for many people. So definitely very different to when I joined work, the workforce. I was pretty much expected to be at my desk at a certain time and, leave at a certain time, or stay longer, of course. But there was no, and always questioned about where you were. And so I think that's fundamentally changed for the good. And I think that reflects a culture of, trust and autonomy and enabling people. And I think that's really important. I think lastly, which is an area that I'm really passionate about and have certainly focused a lot on, is the role of leaders and culture. And I think that is tremendously changed over my career. When I joined the workforce, leaders were a lot more directive. It was a lot more of an authority model. There was little opportunity, I think, for employees to provide feedback or share their views or opinions. And I think the role of leaders was a lot more administrative than it is now. And so I think just from the role of leaders and culture, as a product of leadership was quite different. The way we lead people now is pretty different. People expect to have a say, of course, naturally, and we know it leads to better outcomes. But it does mean that as leaders, you've got to have really good people skills, really good relationship skills. You've got to work towards collaboration, teamwork, building trust and engagement. And so I think ultimately the skills we look for in our leaders now is far more about, resilience, adaptability, relationship building.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty different to what it was, 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, you touched on some really great points in that response. Just want to drill into a few of them. One of them obviously is the big work from home trend. Obviously COVID, as you said, accelerated that condition within the workplace. As we move to a more post-pandemic period, is that starting to shift? Where do you think it's headed in terms of the work from home hybrid model?
Yeah, look, really good question, and there's certainly been a lot of debate, whether it's business, large corporates, government and politicians, all weighing in on what they think it should or could be. Look, I'm a firm believer that one of the benefits of the pandemic has in fact been this acceleration of flexible work and how we have seen a really positive outcome. And what I mean by that is that I think we saw that people can work from home, that we have the technology to enable that, and if you have really good leaders and systems in place, then you're able to accommodate that. I think post-pandemic, I think what I've seen and what we're working on and continue to work on and believe is that it's not an either-or proposition. Life is not so black and white generally, that you can in fact do both. You can have people work from home or work, flexible hours and come to the office, and you get the best of both.
You mentioned data analytics, and I know that Frasers has a big focus on work culture. How do you go about, capturing the data around staff and ensuring that you're creating a nice workplace culture?
Look, we've been measuring our culture through a tool externally, the OCI, for at least 15 years. And doing that has really allowed us to transform our culture because of the insights you get. And you're able to break that down into pretty specific team areas and groups. So you're able to really understand what's going on and where you need to focus your energy and effort. And I think that's really important because otherwise, you could be working on a whole lot of stuff that's pretty superficial.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of chat around earning the commute.
Yes.
What do you think are the deep value things that resonate with employees?
Yeah, look, I think earning the commute is like I said, it's about being deliberate about when they come into the workspace, that the time they spend there is valuable. So that might be, they're connecting with colleagues, they're working on things together, they're collaborating. It might be that team meetings are happening, that workshops are happening. I guess if people, commute and then the only thing they do is sit on a virtual call for 8 hours, they bounce from call to call, it probably is not the best use of their commute. I think the other part of that, of course, is the physical office. And making sure that spaces are well designed, have lots of great natural light, are just great spaces to be in. So of course I think that both of those things are equally important.
I'm keen to understand more around that leadership piece as well. What do you think makes a good leader in the Frasers property industrial model, but also more broadly?
Yeah, I think it's about being a good human and being able to translate that into leadership. And I think it's a really hard role because you've got a lot of competing challenges around, what you need to get done as a leader, your own, strategic initiatives and operational things. And then if you're a people leader, you're leading a team of people. And working with people is pretty hard because people are nuanced and they have emotions and feelings. And, what works for some people doesn't work for others. And so I think leaders need to have really good emotional intelligence. I think they need to focus on good conversations and have all those things around being empathetic and supportive, but also being able to manage performance, and both of those are equally important. So I think, look, it's ultimately about relationship skills, good conversations, and look, absolutely, I would say again, I'd reinforce that ability to adapt, and that resilience is really important too.
No closed door offices anymore.
No, I haven't seen one of those for a very long time.
No. It's a really tough labour market out there at the moment. Talent recruitment and retention is such an important issue. How does Frasers go about ensuring that they're recruiting the best and keeping them on board?
Our employee value proposition is something that we've recently reviewed over the last couple of years in light of the fact that the workforce and employee expectations has certainly evolved and continues to evolve. And the things we consider are absolutely critical are things around flexibility and of course what that means in our workforce. And when I talk about flexibility, it's a two-way street. It's important for us to ensure that we've got a business to run, that we're able to serve our customers and clients and work well with our teammates and colleagues, but we're also able to value that people have commitments outside of work. They have a whole life, not just a work life. So I think flexibility is really key to us. The second one is learning and growth. That understanding that people need to continually think about what it is they need to learn and grow in the role and the business, and it doesn't mean they're changing jobs all the time or anything like that, but what we know is that personal growth is intrinsically linked to satisfaction. And so in our workplace we want to ensure that we are providing opportunities and support for people to grow and learn as they want to, also in terms of managing and navigating their own careers. And I think the last one, which has become more prevalent since COVID, but it's something we worked on previously and certainly are ramping up also, is health and wellbeing. And when I think about health and wellbeing now, it's really looking at that holistic approach for us in our business, and thinking about the impact that health and wellbeing has on individuals, teams and performance. And it's mental health, physical health, but it's also things around our systems and processes. What are the things that we can do better that don't get in the way of people doing their best or being their best? So that holistic approach to that, I think, is also really important for us.
So interesting having to balance between your employee expectations but also a business's expectations. In the next 100 years, what do you think will be the major changes that impact this environment?
Yeah, Look, undoubtedly, I would say technology, AI, digital. And when I say those things, I don't exactly know what I'm even referring to, because I think there are going to be things that will come about in the next 100 years that we can't imagine, and certainly I can't imagine. But I do think it will continue to accelerate change. I think what that means, though, for roles is that certainly there will be some roles that no longer need to be done by people. And things, and there might be sort of administrative support roles. It might be, and very different in different industry, of course, whether it's in manufacturing, corporate offices, etc. I think what that does mean, though, is that there will be other roles, and what we will value more is things like critical thinking, problem solving, relationships. I think that stuff, whilst, I'm led to believe that, or I've been told that, machine learning can do all of that. Look, I think that human brains are pretty complex, and people are complex. And so I don't think that stuff will ever replace the need for humans in the workplace. There will always be a role for people. I just think those roles will change and evolve. So I think that's going to be definitely very interesting, and probably, a whole lot of stuff we can't even imagine. I think the second thing, and linked to that, is more and more of a shift to being lifelong learners. I think that with the changes in technology and AI, etc., that people will need to learn about this stuff, and those that are able to adapt and think of learning as a lifelong thing, I think will be most successful.
Fascinating stuff. Thanks so much for your time today, Ranna.
Pleasure, thank you.
Thank you.